Well, now, this is Church Street, the street where I was born. Behind me here is number 45. My mother still lives there. I suppose it was pretty easy for a fella like me to be a writer, you know, really, because when I came out of the door here in the morning, the first thing I saw across the road were 3 different languages. Spes mea in Deo means my hope in God. My song, the Veal, means the town hall, and Erin Gobra means Ireland forever. But there's a very interesting little story concerning it. Next door to us here, there lived a man by the name of Jack Stack. Jack Stack was a draper. And whenever strangers would come to town for the Listowell races, they'd stand bemused with their hands behind their backs, looking up at this piece of sculpture across the road. And they'd say after a while to Jack, but what does it all mean? And Jack would say, Spes mea in Deo means I am a lion. My song, the Veal, means I'm just after eating rhubarb. And Erin Gobra means, in God's name, do not stand under me. Of course, the street is full of other writers. At the very top, there was the famous Blind Hennessy. And further down, then, you have Seamus Wilmot just across the street here. Further still down is Brian McMahon, who lived just across the road from my mother's house. Of course, it's also a notorious town for dogs. And I know many of these dogs personally. In fact, I couldn't go to sleep at night without listening to the beautiful ululations of the many neighbourhood greyhounds. It's one of the things that visitors always remark upon when they come to the store is the number and the variety and the heterogeneous breeds of dogs in the place. And they are often astonished by the size and often the ferocity and sometimes by the politeness of these dogs, who often accompany people around the street for no reason at all except to extend, if you like, the paw of friendship. When I was about 17, I wrote a poem about this street of mine. I just called it The Street. I love the flags that pave the walk. I love the mud between, the funny figures drawn in chalk. I love to hear the sound of drays upon their round, of horses and their clock-like walk. I love to hear the music of the rain. I love to hear the sound of muddy waters flushing in the main. I love the breaks between when little boys begin to sail their paper galleons in the drain. Grey clouds sail west and silver tips remain. The street, thank God, is bright and clean again. Here within a single little street is everything that is of pomp and blessed poverty made sweet, and all that is of love, of man and God above, of happiness and sorrow and conceit, of tragedy and death and bittersweet, of hope, despair, illusion and defeat. A golden mellow peace forever clings along the little street. There are so very many lasting things beyond the wall of strife in our beleaguered life. There are so many lovely songs to sing of God and his eternal love that rings, of simple people and of simple things. I do most of my writing here in this room. I'm never stuck for ideas, actually, because all I have to do is look out the window and I can see the various quirks and foibles and the little peculiarities of the people that pass to and fro. I never deal with them sarcastically or harshly, but lovingly, I hope. I try to bring out the humorous aspect of life as I see it down there in that street. Actually, I've written, I think, something like 3,000 articles on the minute incidents and happenings out there. It's so simple to do it because no two people are alike. The way they do it, everything they do is different. No two people park a car the same way. No woman carries home a bag of groceries the same way. Over beyond then is the public toilet, which is never officially open, by the way. But today now, for instance, I'm writing about a character by the name of Tom Summers. Tom Summers was a typical character of Listowell, a town which abounded in the most colourful and peculiar characters in the country. Tom was a man who said everything backwards, you know? And he was once looking for a job, and he went to a man called Tommy Hannon, who was a building contractor, and he asked Tommy for a job, and Tommy said to him, right, but can you climb a ladder? Yes and no, said Tom. What do you mean, said Tommy? You see, said Tom, the last time I was up a ladder, it was down a well. There are 100 stories about Tom, and indeed about everybody, the thousands and thousands of characters that have peopled the streets of Listowell out there for generations and generations. But there is no scarcity of humour and warmth in the people who live here. And they take no exception whatsoever to my writing about them. In fact, I think they really enjoy it down deep. And now, ladies and gentlemen, at tremendous expense from the Bridge Road, which is more than 237 yards from here, we bring you tonight the one and only, the inimitable Jackie Hannon, Starkwire Walker.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a brief imagination of how the slack wire is done in a circus. Now, instead of walking on the wire, I'm walking in carpet in this case. Now, before this act begins, I'd advise you all put out your cigarettes for 5 minutes, as it has a serious effect on the vacuum of the umbrella. After all, I'm not insured, and my life is in grave danger.
The many circuses which have visited Listowell have no doubt left their effect on Jackie Hannon, our slack wire walker. We are all Jackie Hannons. Some of us contain the comedy, whilst others, like Jackie, revel in it, and so fulfil themselves, colouring their existence and heightening and brightening their everyday lives. Life in Listowell would be humdrum without a leavening of Jackie Hannons. These are the Listowell Players, a company I helped found 20 years ago. They have performed most of my plays. Here we see them rehearsing The Buds of Ballybunion. They have just left an ordinary world to enter the extraordinary. They express my thoughts and feelings, and I have with them a very close and rewarding relationship. They are a fantastic group of people. I love every one of them. I was a bit unhappy about, say, the priest hat, the slouch hat. It looks more like an Australian sort of thing with the wide brim, you know.
Yes.
Then you would see, because the priest that came to Ballybunion, when I was a gossoon, were very slick fellas, you know.
Yes.
Very nettily dressed.
Girls, I'd like us to take the scene about the turkey cocks. You know the one where you're discussing the merits and demerits of the common cock versus the station cock, and about the poultry instructors and all that. So if we could start there with Mrs. Black, where she says, I wouldn't let my board near a common cock. That one, will you please?
I wouldn't let my bird near a common cock. It's a station cock for me, no matter what.
I imagine a cock you know is better than a cock you don't know.
Well, if you've none of your own, there's a lot to be said for a neighbour's cock.
You're all entitled to your opinion. But the station cock is certified by the poultry instructors. She ought to know. She's handling cocks every day.
'Tis all luck. You could be lucky with a bad cock, and a good cock could break your heart.
You can't really depend on any cock.
Oh, no cock is to be trusted.
Well now, my advice to you, Miss Bessie and Miss Tessie, is to have no more to do with local cocks. You just can't trust a local cock. When your hen starts to lie and passes her first egg, bundle her into a bag and land her to the nearest station cock. Make sure that no hen has been serviced before you. Make sure you get the first start of the day, and you'll never touch an ordinary cock again.
Here come the men. Say no more about cocks now.
Listowell railway station. This place for me has many poignant and many happy memories, a mixture of the two. I suppose the saddest moment in my life was when I left this station together with hundreds of other boys and girls for England. That year that I left, 1950, I think approximately 55,000 boys and girls were exported from Ireland, many of them never to come back again. I remember there was a queue along here of nearly 50 to 60 people in the morning I was going. And in that queue were boys and girls who were going for the first time. Tearful eyes. The parents were too lonely to come into the station to see them off. That was the biggest hemorrhage, I would say, that Ireland ever knew, was that huge exodus around that time. Then you had the old stagers, fellas who were used to coming and going, hopeless cases. And when I got on the train that day, I started to think of the whole situation, it's the tragedy underlying it, and I started that song, which I used later in the play, Many Young Men of 20, and I was beating at the window like this, you know. Many young men of 20 said goodbye all that long day, from break of dawn until the sun was high. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. My boy Jimmy went that day on the big ship, sailed away and left me here to die. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. Many young men of 20 said goodbye all that long day, from break of dawn until the sun was high. They left the mountain and the glen, the lassies and the fine young men saw the tears of every girl and boy. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. And so we went off, a whole train load of us, hit off for Rosslare or Dunlare or wherever it was, and out of the country, many of us forever. I love the countryside. I'm part of it. I feel for it in the most loving way. Strolling through it is a form of prayer, I think. I know most of the trees in my way, personally and intimately. I know each feature of the landscape as if it were a member of my own family. I can't wait to get out amongst the fields and the streams. Nature, undoubtedly, manifests itself in many carefree forms. This is the countryside. It's chock full of beautiful streams. And I come here to relax, ponder, fashion and refashion lines. Often talk to myself, trying to compose a poem or a song or a good line to a story. Creating plots, correcting plots. But I find that in this peaceful, beautiful place, it's full of soft, chuckling waters and birdsong, I can create and recreate quite easily and comfortably. It's also a great place to come in the morning if you have a sick head from the excesses of the night before. All around me here is history, every place. Behind on my left is Cunnacanor. It's mentioned in Filiach na Finiachta. Cunnacanar and Cunnac Shahir, Scalan, Braha, Biach da Garam. A farig na Makal Mani gan Fa Tugavan Tanam. It was there that, according to Fenian mythology, that Oscar, the grandson of Finn McCool, slew the king of the world. Of course, the fight is, like all good scraps, was over blood. Now, behind my back, behind the town, is the hill of Ballygrinnan, which overlooks Listowell. There was an old parish priest one time in Listowell, and he used to say that the people of Ballygrinnan always look down on the people of Listowell. But he says this is because they're higher up to them. It's also said about Ballygrinnan that if you take a Listowell man, or indeed a North Kerry man, from that area to any part of the world, even Kathmandu or Timbuktu or Manchuria, and put him up in a disc and spin the disc around and around and around and around and blindfold him as well, that when the disc stops spinning, no matter where he is, his nose will always be pointing exactly towards Ballygrinnan. Behind Ballygrinnan, then you have the Stacks Mountains, where I was reared. I was born in the store, but I spent most of my youth in the Stacks, and it was here I met the most wonderful people you could ever meet. People with a language all of their own, half Irish, half English, which, when it fused, represented a purely poetic tongue, which was ideal for writing, which I used in most of my early plays. Beyond the Stacks Mountains, then you have the beautiful Tralee Mountains, and beyond those you have the Dingle Range, ending with Mount Brandon, which dips right into the Atlantic. But it's a great countryside for the likes of me. I found the saddest aspect of going to England back in 1951 was having to leave a beautiful river like this, like the Field, and all this wooded, beautiful area around here. At the time I wrote a short poem about leaving and about the river itself. All over Field River the shadows are falling, and deep in Shannowan the vixen is calling. Lie still in my arm, do not mourn, love, or tremble. The wild doves are sleeping high on the green bramble. I would fly like a bird with white wings in the air, or swim the wide waters far off and declare. Come close, love, come closer. Look deep in the pool, love. Was ever love making so tender or true love? The sweet night is young, love, the night is forever, and shadows are falling all over Field River. You know, I think a man is lucky 1,000 times over to be born near river water, or to be born within the vicinity of the sound of a river. Because once you get used to a thing like that, you find it very difficult to live without the sounds of river water. This river here sang for me all my life, and it has never stopped singing. Even when I go to bed at night, I can hear its muted tones in the distance. Even when it's at its highest flood, I can hear its majestic tones, the beauty of its never-changing heavenly monotony, because it has a majesty, a sweet flowing gait I have found nowhere else. It sang, as I said, for me. It sang for my father and his father before him, and I hope, please God, that it will sing for my sons. Because being without a river to me is being without life almost. I have already addressed the people after last Mass this morning. Local elections. I've just cast my vote. And I'm reminded of a great story about this town, about a man who once stood for the urban council. He only got 2 votes. And on the night of the count, he went into his local pub, and the publican said to him, "Well, you can't blame me," he said. "I voted for you." "Well," says your man, "my wife must be an awful liar, so," says he. There was another time I remember I was canvassing myself with a cousin of mine for a local election. We called into this man and we asked him for the vote, and he said, "I'll do what I can for you." We said, "Where is your mother?" "She's outside," he said, "in the house that you didn't build for her last time." And the best election speech I ever heard was given by one Dan Penny O'Sullivan of Lyra-Crown Pawn, who spoke and said that you'll never have peace in this country, he said, till every man has more than the next. But the colour and chatter and the excitement of a local election surpasses everything. And I must say this, I greatly admire the man who stands up and puts his name down to go forward. Whether he wins or loses, he's expressing concern for his community. The most hilarious incident in my life took place at this railway station in the very early 1950s, when there arrived to this town a man by the name of Tom Doodle. Tom Doodle, of course, was a fictitious character, if you like, but we got a local actor and done him up. And this man was to stand for the Dáil in the town. The whole idea of bringing Doodle to Listowell was to kill off the bitterness which existed then in local politics. And we succeeded admirably. Tom Doodle came into Listowell railway station aboard the train. And outside there were 3,000 people waiting to receive him. Many of these were on horses, mules, donkeys, wearing top hats, tall hats, football ganses, bathing togs, any kind of apparel you care to imagine. When Doodle arrived, he was accompanied by one Jaws Finucane, who was his bodyguard, who produced a Webley from his pocket and fired 2 shots over the heads of the crowd in case any attempt might be made to assassinate Tom Doodle. Then we got outside the railway station where there was a mighty round of applause. And the Doodle anthem was sung while a black flag was raised. That was the flag of Doodle, a black flag. The anthem went like this. Our song is sung for Doodle Tom. He made us free. He topped the pole in old Listowell and brought us polly goats to see. 3 cheers for Tom, 3 beers for Tom, 3 beers and cheers for Doodle unto victory. We left this railway station, we marched all around the town, up around Boyerconn's Avenue, the only place, by the way, where the old stock of the town is still left, on down William Street, down into the square, where a huge platform was erected in readiness for Doodle's arrival. He got up there and he spoke and he outlined the plan of his party, which he called the Independent Cowlogist Party. The word Cowlogist is meaningless. And this was the policy he had. Number 1, to build a factory for shaving the hair of gooseberries. Number 2, to plough the rocks of Vaughan. And number 3, free treatment for sick heads. He gave his blessing to the crowd, departed the scene, and was never again observed in this part of the world. He's not gone from us forever. He's always there. If bitterness arises again, we'll bring him back to restore the harmony that should always exist between people. Because remember, when the politics are over, the friendships must be resumed again. Doodle, there is this painting of him painted by a well-known artist, and this painting hangs permanently in one of the town's more notorious hostelries, where the memory of Tom Doodle is frequently and drunkenly toasted by those who loved him long ago, his many fine supporters. Viva Doodle! A very pleasant and nostalgic occasion this, because tonight a member of the Restored Players, of which group I have the honour to be patron, are seeing away a member of our company, one illustrious and beautiful girl here, Mariette Carroll. She's departing for another shore, and this in a sense is an updated or jazzed up American wake, but we sincerely hope that she may come back to us again. Now, her mother is very fond of a song I wrote a long time ago called Keane, so I'll give a little blast of it if you don't mind. Oh, my love, my lost one, soon the roses must die, and soon the wild duck will fly far down the sky. Oh, my love, my lost one, do not leave me to die, for the strength and love of you down here in Keelty, I'll be waiting for you where the small waters flow. Down here in Keelty, where the white thorns grow, the white fires of joy in your bosom will glow when you see your fine young son down here in Keelty. Coulson crew crir, knock true a mushkil, Tom a Lannon Quailolin, Tourt Iger and Sill, Tom a Lannon Quailolin, a mocked at a teen, Isni Eckham, good Joe, his, a guilty, altogether now. Oh, my love, my lost one, soon the roses must die, and soon the wild duck will fly far down the sky. Oh, my love, my lost one, do not leave me to die, for the strength and love of you
down here in Kilty.
The best thing about living in a town like Listowell is that you can gather your friends about you at will or at a moment's notice, either in enjoyment or to comfort you in sorrow. And to these people I would like to impose an ancient and very venerable Irish blessing. To these, to more aid, to all my friends, that the frost might never afflict your spuds, that your cabbage might always be free from worms, that the crows might never pick your stack, that your goat might never bred the puck, and should you one day by good fortune come into possession of a mare donkey, may she be in fold. Many young men of 20 said goodbye all that long day, from break of dawn until the sun was high. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. My boy Jimmy went that day on the big ship, sailed away and left me here to die. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. Many young men of 20 said goodbye all that long day, from break of dawn until the sun was high. They left the mountain and the glen, the lassies and the fine young men saw the tears of every girl and boy. Many young men of 20 said goodbye. Many young men of 20 said goodbye.